Hello and welcome to the walkthrough for College Trig MAT122. This is worksheet 6A. We jumped from unit, I think it was 3. We're jumping all the way up to unit 6. And this is just because in years past we've had to take the trig star by a certain time, and we had to get through the law of sines, law of cosines before we got to the trig star. So all that being said, we are on unit 6. We're going to be looking at the law of sines and the law of cosines, and just applying those to some problems and practicing them and getting really good at them. So I'm only going to do 4 problems off this worksheet. And hopefully, just doing a couple of these, you'll get the gist of it, and then just practice it for the rest of the worksheet. My answer keys to these with all the problems worked out are on Schoology, so feel free to use that. And here we go. So 2 things that we have to know for this worksheet are law of sines and law of cosines. So here's the law of sines. With this, you got to be very, very mindful that you have the side A over the sine of the angle across from A. So here we have a pink A and the angle A, and that's how I make that first fraction. Same thing with B, same thing with C. So all 3 of these fractions are equal to each other. So you can do 2 of them. You can do A compared to C, A compared to B, B compared to C, however you want to do it. So this is just saying that the fraction of any side over sine of the angle across from it is going to be equal to the same setup for either of the other 2 angles inside. So this is what we have for that, so make sure you have that written down, and it'll make more sense as we do a couple problems. Now here is the law of cosines. Now the law of cosines is for when you don't have a side and an angle across from each other. So let's say you had like side, angle, side. If you ever had that set up, this is what you would want to use, because the law of cosines will allow you to solve for that missing side or that missing angle. Okay, so we typically don't use law of cosines unless we have to. Law of sines we use a ton because it's really, really easy with the setup. Okay, so let's look at number 1. So number 1, they tell us that side A is 5, B is 7, and angle A is 31. So to draw this correctly, and I kind of just drew a basic triangle. I didn't try and get too fancy or make sure my measurements were exact. It's just to give you something to look at. Okay, so when you're drawing this, you have to set up the angle 31 across from the 5, because those are both A. And then B has to be across from B, and then obviously C across from C. So drawing that part, getting that part right is critical, because the rest of it will make sense if you don't. Okay, so they gave us the 31 and the 5, and they're both A. So I set up my law of sines with 5 divided by sine over 31. And then I know the side for B, but I don't know the angle for B. So I put 7 over the sine of B. Now I'm just going to solve for sine of B by doing sine of 31 times 7 divided by 5, and that's kind of what I have right here. And then when you get that, you'll get a decimal. You get 0.721 and a bunch of other stuff. The right side is sine of B, so I have to undo that sign in order to figure out what B actually is. So I did that here in blue. I inverse signed both sides, and that second sign on your calculator. If you do that, you're going to get 46.14, and that is the angle at B. So we have our missing angle there. Now, I took that missing angle, and I took the 31 they gave me, and I know that all angles inside of a triangle have to add up to 180. So I did A plus B plus C equals 180. I know A, I just found B, so I can find C. So if you subtract both of those angles from 180, you get 102.86, and that is my angle C. Okay, so now I know the angle for C. I need to find the missing side, so I'm going to do law of sines again. I'm going to use that 5 and 31 again because those were given and I know they're right. And I'm going to set that equal to the missing side over the sine of the 102.86 that I just found. And you should find that side C is 9.46. And there we go. All right, let's talk about number 2. So number 2, we have an angle of 116 across from a 10.1 foot side, and then we have an angle of 9. So I tried to make the angle C or angle B look like 116, so bigger than 90, and then I just picked the smallest angle for the 9 degrees, because 9 degrees is a pretty small angle. So at the beginning of the problem, I knew I had 2 angles, so I'm going to find the third by just saying A plus B plus C is 180. I know B, I know C, so A must be 55 degrees, and that's what I got. And then to find the missing sides, I'm going to do a couple law of sines. So they gave me a 10.1 and the angle of sine, or the angle of 116, so I signed that. And then I did side A over the sine of 55, because the A and 55 are both talking about A. If you solve that, and I kind of showed how I did that over here on the right, you should get A is 9.21 feet, so pretty straightforward. Okay, same setup for side C. I do 10.1 over sine of 116, that was all given. And then I put C over the sine of 9, and 9 was given. So I have 3 givens. I'm going to find the fourth thing from that. And you find out the side length of C is 1.76 feet. So pretty straightforward. Okay, number 3. This one gave us 3 sides. So we got to find the angles based off of 3 sides. Well, what I wrote here is you can't use the law of sines because we don't know any of the angles. So what we have to use is the law of sines, or law of cosines rather. And what we do is we plug in our A, our B, our C into all the places it goes. And at the end, we're solving for that A, that uppercase A, cosine of A. So you got to be very, very careful when you're doing this. But what you'll do is you'll do 10 squared, 11 squared, subtract from the other side. You'll do negative 2 times 10 times 11, divide that over to the other side, and then you'll get some decimal. You have to inverse cosine both sides, and you end up with A is 50.48 degrees. So I have one of my angles. So now I take that angle A and put the side length A above it, and then I did B first, so 10 over sine of B. I solve this for angle B, and I get 58.99. So now I have 2 angles. I can find the third by just setting them equal to 180. So A plus B plus C equals 180. Subtract the 2 angles that I found, and you end up with C is 70.53 degrees. So if you're not able to set up a law of sines, chances are you got to use law of cosines to find something else. Okay, so the only other problem I was going to do was one of the word problems. I think 11 is the hardest word problem on here, and I drew a pretty good diagram of that. If that gets confusing, email me. But the problem I chose to do for this video is question 10. It says there's a fire and it's spotted from 2 lookout towers, A and B, which are located 10.3 miles apart. If B reports the angle, or reports the fire at this angle, and A reports it at this angle, then how far is the fire from station A from station B? So I drew a picture, and if you don't draw a picture, good luck, because it's going to be hard. So we have our fire at 2 stations. They give us 2 angles, and they give us a side length. Well, we don't have to find everything here. All we have to do is find this X, and we have to find this Y. Well, before I can start solving stuff like that, I do have to find that third angle across from the 10.3. So it's the angle where the fire is. Well, I take 2 angles that they gave me, I subtract them from 180, I get 102.1. So I'm going to set this up with 10.3 over the sine of 102.1 equals, and then the side length I want is X first. So I put X over sine of 52.6. You end up with X is 8.37 miles. And then I do the same trick for Y, but now I'm doing the sine of the 25.3, which is across from side length Y, and I end up with 4.5 miles. So that is what I got, okay? So that is it for worksheet 6A. Like I said, as you guys go through these, I'm sure you will get better and a lot quicker about doing these problems. I don't think any of them are really tough, but if you get stuck, feel free to email me. Use the answer keys on Schoology liberally, and yeah, bring any questions that you have to class, or just email me and I'll answer them. Okay, have a nice day and good luck.